Breaking news out of Nigeria, 13 July 2025, Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria former president is dead. That was the headline that shook the nation. The day Muhammadu Buhari died, Nigerians were not simply mourning, they were arguing. Social media erupted, not with uniform condolences, but with division. On Twitter, Facebook, and in newsrooms across the country, the reactions painted a picture more complicated than grief. Some posted tributes. Rest in peace, Baba. You served Nigeria the best you could. Others? Far more blunt. Finally, the man who put Nigeria in reverse is gone. That stark contrast defined how Nigeria viewed Muhammadu Buhari, not just in death, but throughout his entire public life. To some, he was a father figure, a disciplinarian, a man who stood for order in a chaotic nation. To others, he was the embodiment of unfulfilled promises, a rigid, disconnected ruler who failed to understand the complexities of modern governance. But love him or hate him, no Nigerian could ignore him. This is the story of Muhammadu Buhari, the soldier turned civilian, the patriot turned pariah, the leader whose legacy now lies in the hands of history. Buhari's journey is Nigeria's journey, filled with hope, conflict, disappointment, and resilience. So let's rewind the tape, and go back to where it all began. Before the man, there was the boy. Muhammadu Buhari was born on December 17, 1942, in Dora, Katsina State. As the 23rd child in a large polygamous household, he grew up under the strict structure of Fulani Islamic tradition. His father, a Fulani nobleman, and his mother, of Kanuri descent, raised him with discipline and deep religious values. Buhari attended Katsina Provincial Secondary School and joined the Nigerian Military Training College in 1962. Nigeria had just gained independence, and Buhari rose swiftly, training in the UK and US, absorbing military culture and the ideology of order, discipline, and national unity. His military career saw early combat during the Nigerian Civil War, where he commanded troops in key battles. While his role in Biafra made him a villain to some Igbos, it cemented his belief in a united Nigeria. He later served as governor of the northeastern state, petroleum minister, and head of the NNPC, witnessing firsthand the corruption plaguing Nigeria's institutions. In 1983, amid economic collapse and public frustration under President Shagari, Buhari led a coup. On December 31, 1983, he became head of state. He declared a war against indiscipline and launched a fierce anti-corruption campaign. Over 500 politicians were jailed, many without trial. Critics called it selective justice. Most of the convicted were from southern parties. Buhari's regime shocked the world in 1984 with the failed kidnapping of exiled minister Umaru Dikko in London. The international scandal damaged Nigeria-UK relations, branding Buhari a law-breaking hardliner. By 1985, Buhari's rigid policies, refusal to devalue the naira, and growing unpopularity led to his overthrow in a bloodless coup by his deputy, Ibrahim Babangida. Buhari was detained for 3 years. Many thought his story was over. But in 2003, Buhari re-emerged, running for president under the ANPP. He lost to Olusegun Obasanjo amid claims of electoral fraud. He tried again in 2007 and 2011, still losing but building a reputation as a patient, incorruptible Democrat. In 2011, riots erupted in the north after his defeat, though Buhari himself urged peace. In 2013, a coalition of opposition parties formed the All Progressives Congress, APC. Buhari, now rebranded as a civilian elder statesman, was chosen as its presidential candidate. He selected Yemi Osinbajo, a Christian pastor, as his running mate. On March 28, 2015, Buhari made history, defeating incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan, the first peaceful transfer of power from one party to another in Nigeria. At his inauguration, Buhari famously declared, "I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody." Hopes were high. But challenges loomed. Oil prices collapsed shortly after Buhari took office. The economy nosedived into its worst recession in 25 years. Buhari delayed key appointments, resisted devaluation of the naira, and implemented a dual foreign exchange policy that fostered corruption. Though the economy recovered by 2017, millions of jobs had been lost. Inflation soared. Unemployment, especially among youth, worsened. Buhari's anti-corruption crusade was bold but controversial. While he remained personally untainted, his administration shielded some close allies accused of fraud, like Babakar Lawal. Many felt the fight was selective and lacked transparency. Nonetheless, Buhari maintained a reputation for personal integrity, living modestly and avoiding the lavish excesses common among Nigerian elites. Initially, Buhari's military background gave hope in the fight against Boko Haram. In early years, territories were reclaimed and attacks reduced. But by 2018, new threats emerged: mass kidnappings, banditry, and herder-farmer conflicts. Hundreds of students were abducted in Zamfara, Katsina, and Niger states. Buhari's administration responded with military action and occasional negotiations, but insecurity continued to spiral. Buhari was often criticized for silence in times of crisis. He rarely addressed the nation directly, avoiding press conferences and reacting slowly to events. During the #EndSARS protests in 2020, sparked by police brutality, Buhari's delayed and vague response further alienated the youth. The Lekki Toll Gate shooting deepened the divide. Many saw him as indifferent and detached. Buhari won re-election in 2019, defeating Atiku Abubakar. But the excitement of 2015 had faded. Voter turnout was low, and optimism had waned. The economy continued to struggle. Nigeria became the poverty capital of the world, with over 90 million people living in extreme poverty. The Academic Staff Union of Universities strikes paralyzed universities. Fuel subsidy issues resurfaced. Public services deteriorated. Despite setbacks, Buhari's administration did deliver in certain sectors. Completion of railways and road projects. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the Abuja-Kaduna Railway. Nigeria's first deep-sea port in Lekki. Rural electrification and agricultural support schemes. Digital banking infrastructure and the National Identification Number (NIN), Bank Verification Number (BVN) linkage. These developments, while significant, were overshadowed by the broader sense of national frustration and economic hardship. By the end of his second term in May 2023, Buhari handed over to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. His farewell was modest. No drama. No last-minute decrees. He retired to Dora, the town where it all began. His legacy remains polarizing. Supporters remember him as personally honest, a disciplined reformer and a stabilizing figure in volatile times. Critics remember him as a detached, old-school ruler, a missed opportunity and a president who failed to connect with the 21st century Nigerian. When Buhari died in July 2025, public reaction was mixed. Northern towns mourned. Southern cities joked. Social media exploded with memes and debates. Some praised his integrity. Others mocked his silence. His passing reignited discussions about leadership, accountability, and Nigeria's future. As news of his passing spread, Nigerians responded in waves. Outside his hometown of Dora, Katsina, traditional leaders gathered. Prayers were held. Elders recalled his childhood. Local journalists called it the end of an era. In Abuja, Aso Rock released a formal statement praising Buhari's lifelong commitment to national service. But on the streets of Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Onitsha, the tone was different. Young Nigerians, particularly those who protested during the #EndSARS movement, had not forgotten, or forgiven, the brutal response to their calls for police reform. Many blamed Buhari for turning a blind eye during a critical moment in Nigerian civil society. On WhatsApp statuses and Instagram reels, satirical videos began circulating, mocking his voice, his mannerisms, even his long absences due to medical trips abroad. One post read, "The man who ruled us from London is finally gone. Rest, wherever you are." Another went viral. "He gave us change. But we didn't know it would be spare change." These weren't just jokes, they were expressions of frustration from a generation that grew up under his leadership and felt betrayed. To understand why the reactions were so polarizing, we have to look at what Buhari represented to different parts of the country. In the north, especially among older conservatives and rural communities, Buhari was revered. He was seen as incorruptible. A man of integrity. A Muslim leader who did not drink, who prayed regularly, and who maintained a Spartan lifestyle. For many there, he represented dignity and discipline. In the south, particularly the southeast and south-south, Buhari was viewed through a different lens. Many believed his government marginalized those regions. From appointments to military operations, Buhari was accused of favoritism, especially toward the north and his native Hausa Fulani circle. The southeast never quite forgot the brutal Biafran War, and Buhari's role as a young officer during that conflict was often resurfaced in Igbo conversations about his presidency. Even in the southwest, where he received significant political support in 2015 through his alliance with Bola Tinubu, the sentiment soured over time. As insecurity and inflation worsened, Buhari's promises of change began to sound hollow, even to his former supporters. Outside Nigeria, global media took a more measured tone. BBC Africa, CNN, and Al Jazeera ran retrospectives on his career, from his 1983 military coup to his historic civilian election in 2015. They remembered his anti-corruption war, his battle with Boko Haram, and his numerous health-related absences from office. Public memory is a strange thing. For some, Buhari will forever be the soldier who brought discipline to a disorderly Nigeria. For others, he'll be the president who missed his moment. When the #EndSARS movement exploded in 2020, Buhari had a chance to rise to the occasion, to listen, to reform, to connect with a younger generation crying for change. Instead, his silence echoed louder than any speech. When the Naira collapsed, when inflation skyrocketed, when insecurity spread from Borno to Kaduna to the capital itself, Buhari's administration seemed more reactive than proactive. And yet, in his absence, a nostalgic revisionism began to grow. Already, some older Nigerians are saying, "At least Buhari wasn't a thief. He meant well. He was strict, but honest." It's the classic Nigerian paradox: every leader, once gone, begins to look better than the current one. Let's break it down. What he got right. 1. Personal integrity. Buhari died with no scandal, no offshore accounts, no mansions abroad. Even his fiercest critics agreed, he lived simply. 2. Anti-corruption symbolism. He may not have defeated corruption, but he made it central to Nigeria's conversation. He created institutions, not just slogans. 3. Electoral history. He oversaw 2 peaceful handovers of power. In doing so, he strengthened Nigeria's democracy. 4. Infrastructure development. New railways. Rehabilitated highways. Power projects. Agro funding. Though imperfect, these physical legacies remain. 5. Military ethics. He restructured the armed forces with more accountability. His leadership style discouraged flamboyance in the military. What he got wrong. 1. Communication and empathy. Buhari's silence in moments of crisis defined his second tenure. He was often called the absent president, physically or emotionally. 2. Economic performance. 2 recessions in 8 years. Soaring inflation. Youth unemployment at an all-time high. 3. Security failures. From Boko Haram to bandits to herdsmen, many believe he lost control. Kidnappings became normalized. 4. Ethnic and regional bias. His appointments heavily favored the north, alienating the southeast. Accusations of Fulanization, whether true or exaggerated, stuck to his image. 5. #EndSARS and human rights. His silence during Lekki Toll Gate massacre and repression of protesters soured youth trust forever. Internationally, his government was seen as hostile to dissent. If Buhari could speak today from beyond the grave, what might he regret? Perhaps he would communicate more clearly and more often. Perhaps he would listen to the youth, not dismiss them. Perhaps he would allow his ministers to innovate, rather than centralize all decisions. Perhaps he would tackle restructuring and reform the police. Perhaps he would act not just with principle, but with empathy. Buhari always ruled like a general, but in a democracy, sometimes people don't need a commander. They need a father. And that's where Buhari may have fallen short. Muhammadu Buhari may go down as a man of incorruptible moral standing. A president who was too rigid for a flexible world. A military man who never quite shook off the shadow of authoritarianism. A nationalist who genuinely believed in Nigeria's potential. A leader who resisted excess, but often fell short of vision. And that may be the greatest irony of his life. He rose to power twice, once by the gun, once by the ballot, but left without fulfilling the dreams he inspired. Muhammadu Buhari was not a thief, nor a messiah. He was a man shaped by the barracks, principled, rigid, and often unyielding. He came with hope, left with criticism, and died leaving behind a complex legacy. The question remains, was he the right man in the wrong era, or a good man who couldn't meet the moment? Was he the president Nigeria needed, but not the one it was ready for? Or was he the general who couldn't transform into a democratic leader? History, and the Nigerian people, will decide. Even in death, the debates about Buhari will rage on. One thing is certain. Muhammadu Buhari is gone. But his impact on Nigeria, its memory, its pain, its pride, will remain etched in the soul of the nation forever. The story of Muhammadu Buhari is more than a political tale, it's a mirror held up to Nigeria's soul. Was he a savior, a soldier, or simply a symbol of what could have been? Now, it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think Buhari's legacy truly is? Was he the leader Nigeria needed, or a missed opportunity in our history? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more untold truths behind Africa's most powerful leaders. Hit the bell so you never miss a story that matters. Let's keep the conversation alive, because history is still being written.